Hello, folks. Today I wanted to demonstrate the pivot table date group function. Um, uh, it's great if you know it's there. If you didn't know it was there, it's a really helpful way to show your date information in a pivot table and change it very easily. So I have a little formula on my clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and paste it. And this formula, just looking at it really quickly, I'm just creating a data set, and it's a rand between 1 and 12, and a rand between 1 and 28, and a rand between 2018 and 2023. And that's creating for me then the first part of this array. And by the way, this is an array literal, so the first array is creating what looks like a date, but it's not really a date yet. And the next one is a VLOOKUP to randomly pull me a brand of vehicle, a random state, and a random amount of money. Let me actually just move this down, and let's call this date. We're going to want headers on this date, brand, state, and notice all these are changing every time, and amount. So just to be able to build a little quick, I'll go ahead and lock that top row. So this one formula is building this. So let's create about 100 rows of data here just to have something to work with. We'll just drag this formula down, and there's my data. Let's go ahead and make that into dollars. Okay, so here's our data set. This really is random data. So what I'm going to have to do is go ahead and copy that, and then I'll come over here and I'll go ahead and do a a paste special. Let me just show you that. Edit, paste special, values only. So now this is actually values. It's not being created by the formula. But let me just show you real quickly. If you insert a checkbox here, every time you check the box, in other words, you're making a change to the sheet, all of these recalculate. But this now doesn't recalculate. And that's kind of what we're after. So let's go ahead and just format that. Now what I want to do is format this as a date. There we go. You can see before I did that, let's undo that. That's text, but I want it to be a date. So if I simply choose the date, there we go. All right, so now what I would like to do is build a pivot table, and we will insert a pivot table, and it's going to be on an existing sheet. And actually, let's do this. This is what we want to build, the data we want to use for our pivot table. So insert pivot table. So sheet 1, J to M, existing sheet. We're going to go ahead and say, let's build this pivot table right here and create it. So here's my pivot table, and let's take a look at what we could do with this. What I wanted to show you is if we put date in our rows, it's going to just come up with all the dates of all of our rows of data. But if I right click and go to create pivot date group, I can show by month what I have, and then let's throw a value in here. So real quickly, I'm showing the value by month, or I could switch this up real quick and go, I'd rather see this by quarter, and those would all be first quarters. But we have multiple years, so let's see what this might look like by year. So there's my 2018, 2019. These are my sales representations, and let's make sure we have space there. We do. So I could create a pivot date group by month, by year. I could even go, okay, what day of the week is the best day for sales? And when I'm working with that, I could decide, what I really want to do. I want this to be the amount descending, so I can see here's, my best day of the week is Wednesday. I could change this to year. My best year was 2023. My best month is January, and so forth. So that's a pivot table group. You simply put a date in your first row, and then you right click and create your pivot date group. one that might be handy is year quarter. So here's our best quarter was in 2018, quarter two. Of course, this is made up data. So another feature of using these pivot tables, if I just click in the first cell of the pivot table and copy and come over here and paste, it duplicates that pivot table, and I could simply change this to quarter. And now I'm just looking at my quarters, and I could do the same thing, paste another pivot table here, right click, and decide that I want to look at maybe I want to look at months. Again, real quick way to take a data set, use your pivot table functions to get this looking the way you want, sorting it the way you want, and so forth. Another thing you could do with this is to go ahead, and I've still got this pivot table on my clipboard, so I'm going to go ahead and paste. And what I could do is take this month date, or my group, and move it down to a column. And as you can see, now I've got this sorted horizontally, excuse me. And then I could decide I want to, show this by state, and I could put that in my rows. So now I have, and again, if I click my pivot group, I could change this to year, and now I have, by state, I have, and by year. Now the reason I'm getting these blank columns in here is I chose to set up this pivot table with the data from J through M, and if I would instead set this up to be J1 through M, if I do that, it's going to show me that through 1000. So what I'd have to do to get rid of that blank is come down here and show that it's row 131, and if I do that, there I get rid of my empty column. And here again, you could see I could decide to change this from year to month. See my best month by this. I could change my state, could become brand instead. So you can see how quick you could build out your well, there you go. There's I put that in the columns. Let me undo that. But as you can see, we could add date here into columns, and if we do that, let's see if that's going to allow us to create a pivot table group. Yeah, we can still do that by month. We could do that pivot table group by, as you can see, quarters and so forth. Hope that's helpful.